Bernard-Henri Lévy is here. He is a philosopher, a journalist, an activist, a filmmaker, and a good friend. His books include American Vertigo, Barbarism with a Human Face, and Who Killed Daniel Pearl. His new book is called Left in Dark Times. I am pleased to have him here back at this table. Welcome.
Thank you, Charlie. Glad to be here too.
This book opens with a phone conversation. President of France, not then the president, but the candidate. He's been endorsed by some people on the left, André Glucksmann and others, another leading French intellectual and philosopher. And he calls up his old friend, Bernard-Henri Lévy, and he said, "This is Nicolas Sarkozy, your friend. I want you to write a letter, endorse me.
To endorse me. Yeah.
It's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
We've been friends.
Yeah.
I want to change France. Yeah. We're on the same place."
Absolutely.
It's an easy call for you. Write a letter for your friend.
And I say no.
No.
I say no. I say no for two reasons. Number one, because you have friendship and you have politics. And they may be different things. You can have friends for whom you don't vote. You can vote for people who are not friends. And number two, because I am a leftist. I belong to the left family, despite the dark times she is crossing, despite all the mistakes she did.
She being the left.
The left. Right. I belong to this family. See what happens in this country. At the very moment we are speaking, this huge financial and economical crisis, it does not come from the sky. It comes from a certain politics. Tax cuts, deregulations, ultraliberalism, the rightist politics has this result. When I speak with Sarkozy, I know that. I know that the only way to lead a modern society today cannot be ultraliberalism, deregulation principles, which he was pleading for exactly as George W. Bush at the same time. So I say, unfortunately, I'm sorry, Nicolas, but no.
He's now been in power.
Yeah.
Are you approving of him, or are you disappointed in him? Do you think he's good for France, bad for France? Has he done all the things you feared, or has he surprised you?
Politics is not good and bad, partly good, partly bad. The only thing I can say is that what he promised on some grounds which are very important for me, he did not hold. He said, for example, that he will be the president of human rights. He went in China for the Olympic Games. He said that every woman being oppressed in the world will find a family in France. Not true.
Will he change France?
Probably, because there is some good aspects also in his politics. But I tell you, for the question which really matters for me, France is not a big power. But at least it has a great tradition and a great voice, and especially on the topic of human rights, of tolerance, of secularism, and so on. And on these grounds, I believe that Nicolas Sarkozy put the flag down. Putin, China, Darfur. He said, for example, that the genocide in Darfur was unbearable, and that him being elected president, something will be done. He appointed my great friend Bernard Kouchner as his Minister of Foreign Affairs. What was done? Nothing. And today, Mr. al-Bashir, President of Sudan, is still in power. He is indicted by the by the Penal Court International. Right. Nothing happens, and he might even be out of that.
All right. When you talk about the left, I mean, this is the book, Left in Dark Times. Who is the left, and what are the dark times?
The left is, as you said, my family. This family...
But who is the family?
The people who believe, for example, that freedom must go with equality. The people who believe that the market cannot be deregulated. The people who believe that fraternity must go with freedom and so on. This left was... involved in a huge crime which was totalitarianism in the 30s, 50s, 60s, and so on. We thought that we got rid of that. With the end of communism, we thought that this page of the old ages was turned forever. The dark times means that there is another form of totalitarianism which is taking birth, and the left, the progressists, the liberals in Europe and in America are again sort of accomplices with this new totalitarianism.
And what is the new totalitarianism?
For example, what I told you, the idea that the rights are not the same for a woman born in America and a woman born in the Muslim world. In America, a woman has the right to be equal to the man. In the Muslim world, you have some liberals in America who believe that the equality does not work. And if we protest against the inequality, unevenness between women and men, it is a colonialist attitude. It is an imperial way of acting. It is a way of continuing the humiliation of the poor people. This is a form of totalitarianism, for example.
Do you think the primary enemy of freedom, human rights, equality today in the world is radical, fundamental Islamism, sometimes called Islamofascism?
It is, of course, it is one of
that is the new totalitarianism.
It is part of it. And what makes me, what astonishes me and what puts me in anger is the refusal of a lot of progressives to admit it. Strangely enough, all the peoples in Europe are supposed to be accountable for their own fascism. We ask to the Germans accounts for the Nazism. We ask, and we are right, to the French to be accountable of their fascism. We ask to America to be accountable for America First, Lindbergh, and so on. In the Islamic world, there is a strange tendency to say it is not the same. They have a sort of fascism, but we should not ask accountability for that. They are not quite responsible. It is special circumstances. So you have major actors, European and American, who are submitted to the principle of accountability, and you would have minor actors in the Muslim world which would be out of that. This double standard, from our part, is a part of the blindness and a part of the dark times left is crossing.
Do you think Putin represents the new totalitarianism?
Of course. And this was, again, a great mistake of the Western world in the last years. We were all convinced, and this is another topic of my book, we were all convinced, like Fukuyama, that the history was finished, that there was no big stakes, that democracy will win over everything.
Francis Fukuyama wrote a book called The End of History.
The End of History. And we did not see Putin coming back. We did not see the old Tsarist mafioso style of regime taking shape and taking its new pattern. And suddenly they arrive in Georgia, they invade Georgia, the tanks and so on, and we are surprised. And we say, oh, it is the miscalculation of Saakashvili. This is incredible. Everybody speak about the miscalculation of the poor Saakashvili, of the little Saakashvili, he's a little power, and nobody speaks about our miscalculation, you American, us European, who miscalculated the Putin ascension.
So China, how should a nation-state deal with China today? You suggested that Sarkozy should not have gone to the Olympics, that Bush should not have gone to the Olympics. That,
of course.
That what? They should have boycotted the Olympics or what? Just
they should have
not showed up for the opening ceremony or what?
I am in favor of a real pragmatic and responsible policy. A pragmatic and responsible policy consists in saying to the Chinese, we go to the opening, but these are the conditions. We don't go like little boys, like little children, attracted by the mirage of the big contracts.
And what would be the conditions?
Human rights.
Human rights, in other words, in Darfur, that they stop supporting...
First of all, human rights inside China.
Sudan?
Inside China first. There was a lot of people, and this I speak of that also in this book, there was a lot of people saying, if we accept the Olympic Games, you will see, human rights will follow. It is the contrary. Human rights have been never in such a bad shape than in the period of the Olympic Games. they put all the poor, all the dissidents, all the humble out of the city. They kick them out to make the city clean. So the very way of thinking was false. This was a condition. We go if you respect human rights. Darfur, Russia has a strong power in Darfur because they buy the oil of Sudan, because they have financial relationship and so on. So we could have asked China in exchange, this is responsibility, this is real pragmatism, this is to make real politics, but the real one. We come to the Olympic Games, but you tell to your friend, the mafioso al-Bashir, to put hands off what remains of Darfur, which are a few skeletons and a few survivors. Hands up off Darfur. Then we will go. But this, unfortunately, is a past story. We all ran after these famous Chinese contracts and sovereign funds and so on. It was disgusting. It was disgusting.
All right, let me talk about anti-Americanism as we close. What is today, not 3 years ago, but today, the state of anti-Americanism in France? And will it disappear if, say, Barack Obama, one example, is elected president?
First of all, if anti-Americanism is a problem for me, it's for two reasons. Number one, because it is unfair. America is a great country who committed some crimes, but which also produced some huge and great achievements in terms of prosperity, but also in terms of moral, of ethics, of values. It is
Crimes
unfair.
like slavery would be what you're talking about, or things like that. Yeah.
But there was slavery and there was a civil rights movement,
Right.
which can lead to Barack Obama tomorrow. What is the country, European country, which is ready to have a black man at the first place? I'm not sure there are many others than America. But anti-Americanism is a problem also because it provides some very strange glasses which prevents to see the world properly. Those who are called the anti-Americans, for example, put them in front of Darfur, put them in front of any bloodbath in the world. If America is involved, then they run and they defend the victims. If America is not involved, they don't care. And if America is involved, but in the side of the victims, then they take the party of the executioners. The anti-Americanism is a sort of very strange machine who provokes some terrible complicities. You see that in Darfur, you see that in Chechnya, and so on. And you saw that in Bosnia. You had a lot of people on the left who, when they understood that Bill Clinton and the public opinion in America felt so concerned by the fate of the Muslims of Bosnia, then they said, if America is on their side, it must mean that it is not a good cause. And then they defended Milosevic, Harold Pinter, Noam Chomsky, to quote great names, but many others. So anti-Americanism is, because of America, but also because of the rest of the world, a terrible thing.
This is a preface to the book. Can a French philosopher's reflections on his intellectual journey shed any light on American dilemmas? What can he, as he wrestles with his own political roots and convictions, possibly have to say to Americans in the midst of the national controversies and momentous decisions? And then it ends with this. I hope these pages can contribute to the effort to clear things up. I hope these pages can contribute modestly but solidly to the reconstruction of a universal movement of free spirits worthy of the name. Neither resignation nor defeatism. It is time to fight back.
The last point is very important because it raised the question of multiculturalism, which is one of the great achievements of America in the last decades, but which has some terrible side and perverse effects today. Multiculturalism was a great thing, giving the same rights and the same respectability to all minorities. But when multiculturalism becomes a way of saying that some crimes or some sort of humiliation must be excused or legitimized because they belong to a certain context, because they are explainable by a certain culture, then the universality of values has to be opposed to that. That's what I want to say.
The book is called Left in Dark Times, A Stand Against the New Barbarism. We will see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Pleasure. Thank you for joining us. See you next time.